guys, welcome back to Gypsy in the City TV. Today's episode is a very exciting one. I feel like I say that about all my videos, but I don't know, I just like making videos. Today's episode is going to be really exciting because it's actually a travel Q&A. If you guys don't know, my blog is called Gypsy in the City and it's called Gypsy for a reason. I know the word gypsy has a lot of different connotations, but for me, it just means somebody who's free-spirited, who enjoys changes, who is not afraid of changes, and who really is ready to embrace kind of whatever comes at them. And I totally feel like that's me. A gypsy is also someone who moves from place to place for employment or whatever the case may be, and that is definitely me. I've lived in way more places than I can name, moved around too many times, and most importantly, I just really enjoy traveling. I'm a gypsy, so I have a vibrant hope for the unknown. That is just me in a nutshell. So traveling is a huge part of my life. It has literally changed my life, and I swear once you travel and you go to your first destination, people call it the travel bug. You get bit by the travel bug, and from there you just become addicted and you want to travel to as many places as you can possibly go, and that was definitely the case for me. Before I get to the questions that you guys all sent me on Snapchat and Instagram in regards to travel, I do want to share a little bit of my travel experience and my travel background, and then I'm gonna start answering those questions. Where have I been to? Okay, so I've been to France, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Morocco, Argentina, Uruguay. So I'm 26 years old and I've traveled so far to a little bit over 11 countries. I don't really know exactly how many at this point because I've been to a lot of islands, so I don't know if the islands count as countries or how does that really work. But I've traveled to a little bit over 11 countries, and the way that I was able to do that was on my own or through my employer. The first international trip that I ever took, well, I've been to Dominican Republic various times, that's where my family's from, but I don't really count that. I'm talking about the first international trip that I ever took to a country that I had never been before and that I didn't really have any ties of going there, you know? That first trip was to Argentina. At the time, I was working for an Argentinian consulting firm. So the company was based in Argentina, and they had an office in New York, and I was working there part-time and I was running their offices in New York. They kind of just needed someone to be there answering phones, checking emails, kind of managing all the day-to-day operations of the office in New York. And it was just the perfect job because I was in school at the time, so it allowed me to focus on my blog stuff, focus on school, and still have some type of income coming in. And the company was amazing to work for. So they actually ended up inviting me to go to Argentina for a little bit over a week. I want to say it was almost 2 weeks, because at that point I had been working for them for almost a year and I had never really met, you know, the president of the company and those type of people. So they invited me to come to Argentina to meet everyone in the company and to also work and to get a feel for what they really wanted to do in the US with the company. So I went to Argentina, like I said, for a little over a week. I also went to Uruguay because we just so happened to have an office in Uruguay, and from Buenos Aires to, oh my god, what is the capital? I can't remember right now. From Buenos Aires to the capital of Uruguay, it's like a 2-hour ferry. It was a phenomenal experience. I'm forever grateful to my company at that time for giving me that opportunity. It was really cool because although I was there for work, they knew that that was my first time in the country, so they also gave me a decent amount of leisure time to really enjoy the country and get to know Argentina and get to see the culture. And I had an amazing time. I got to go to tango shows. I got to do so much, and I'm just still so thankful and grateful for that opportunity from my employer. And I learned so much. Like, oh my god, that was the first time that I got bit by the travel bug, and from there I just wanted to go everywhere and anywhere. When I came back from that trip, I just came back a completely different person, and I felt like I can't even describe it to you guys. It was just one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and I wanted more, I wanted more, I wanted more. And so the following year was my senior year of college, and I promised myself that I would give myself an international trip to wherever the hell I wanted to go, even if nobody wanted to go with me, that I was gonna go alone. And so I wanted to go to Europe, of course. Who doesn't want to go to Europe? I think Paris is at the top of the list for everyone, especially girls, you know, because we all dream of that Parisian chic kind of thing. So around fall of 2013, I started making my travel plans to go to Europe, and I just so happened to mention it to one of my friends, Yvette, and I told her that I wanted to do like this Euro trip as a gift to myself for graduation, even if nobody wanted to go with me. And she was actually totally down to go because she loves to travel as well. And so we both started planning this trip to go to Europe. And so me and Yvette started planning the whole trip. It took us about a year to plan the trip. And then at like maybe 2 months before we were supposed to leave, my friend Aisha, who I met in college in Miami and is doing her and is currently getting her master's in London, I had mentioned the trip to her, and she had money saved up, and she was like, oh my god, can I join you guys? Is it too late? And it still wasn't late for us to join, so then she joined us on the trip, and she met us in Paris. So she took the train down from London to Paris, and she met us there, and Paris was like the first leg of our trip. So during that Euro trip, we went to Europe for, I want to say, like, it was almost 2 weeks, and we ended up going to Paris, Italy. We went to Florence, Rome, and Cinque Terre, which is the Italian Riviera. Then we went to Greece. In Greece, we went to Corfu and Thessaloniki. From Greece, we went to Turkey, and in Turkey, we went to Istanbul. And then from Istanbul, we went to Morocco. We went to Marrakesh, and then from Marrakesh, we came back to the United States. That trip was phenomenal, life-changing. I cannot even begin to tell you how much that trip changed my life. Oh my god, I will never forget that. So then, and that was all on my own. That I saved up money for, and I traveled all on my own with 2 of my friends. Then the most recent traveling that I've done was a little over a year ago already, and I'm so sad because I'm itching to go somewhere already. And I was in Australia in the South Pacific. How I got to travel and see most of Australia, the South Pacific Islands, was through my employer. I ended up getting a job working aboard a cruise ship, and I was working in the art gallery on the cruise ship. And so the cruise ship was based out of Sydney, Australia, and we did 7-day, 14-day, 12-day cruises around the South Pacific Islands. So we got to go to Fiji, we got to go to Vanuatu, we got to go to Maui, all these different islands that I literally had to Google on Google Maps because I had never even heard of them before. And most of the time, well, when I first got there, I literally had no idea what part of the world we were in. I was mind blown at all these geographical places. And that was done through my employer. So I want to let you know that there's 2 ways that you can travel. You can do it on your own with your own funds, or you can work for a company that allows you to travel. So those are the 2 ways right off the bat. Now that I've kind of shared with you my kind of travel background, I'm going to go in and I'm going to answer your questions that you guys sent me. So let's get started with the questions. I made like a list of notes because I wanted to make sure that I went over everything. So the first question is from Nally, and she says, hey Ada, I would love to see a travel video. I love to travel, but I'm in med school, which means I'm poor. Girl, the struggle is real. I totally feel you on that. If you make a video, can you please offer some tips on traveling on a student budget? So I completely understand and agree with you. The struggle is real as a student, and it's hard to travel when you're on a budget. So let me tell you how I did it. Like I said, my Euro trip, I paid for that all on my own, and that was the gift that I gave to myself when I graduated from college. So for that trip, I started planning a year in advance. And so I knew that I wanted to go to Europe. I knew I wanted to go to multiple destinations in Europe, and I made a list of all the places that I wanted to go in Europe. So, you know, I'm like, I want to go to Paris if I can. I want to go to Italy, and I want to go to Greece. And I also want to go to Turkey because I heard that Turkey is amazing. So those were the 4 places that I wanted to go. I wanted to go to Paris, Italy, Greece, and Turkey. So the way that I saved up for this trip was in 3 different increments. First, I saved up the money to buy the airfare for the trips. I did my research. I calculated around how much the flights were going to be, and I saved up all the money that I needed to purchase my flights. When I had all that money saved up, I went ahead and purchased most of the flights on my credit card so that I can get the points for that. And then I went ahead and I paid off the entire balance with the money that I saved up. So my flights were covered. Then I proceeded to do more research, really look into the destinations we were going to, and look at the hotels that we were going to stay at, and My friend Yvette, I have to tell you, was really the mastermind behind this. Homegirl had an entire planner dedicated to our Euro trip. We would have monthly, if not weekly, meetings to discuss the trip, to discuss the places that we wanted to go to, the things that we wanted to do, the hotels and Airbnbs that we wanted to stay at. We would email back and forth pictures and different ideas. We would talk to other people to get ideas on where to stay and what to do, and Yvette was really the whole mastermind on this. At the time, it was my senior year of college, and I was just going through so much, trying to juggle school, an internship, my job, and my blog. So Yvette was a tremendous help. Yvette, if you're watching this, I love you. Like, you really made that trip for me. Thank you so much for all the planning that you did, because really, you were the mastermind behind this trip. Like, I should have brought you in here so that we could have done this Q&A together, because Yvette really was the one that was in charge of most of the planning. For the hotels, Yvette did her research, you know, I did my research, and we calculated about how much the hotels were going to cost us in total. So then we saved up all the money that we needed to buy the hotels, and we bought the hotels on credit cards, and then we paid them off right away with the money that we had saved. So now, once our hotels were booked and our flights were booked, all we needed to do was really save up money to spend while we were there. So the last 3 months before the trip, we were just saving money to go on this trip to Europe. Just saving money. And that's how I was able to save money to go on this trip. So it took me about a year to do it. But like I said, I knew exactly where I wanted to go. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So it was easier for me to save up. And a huge tip that I can give you is, I know people have savings account. For me, like, savings accounts are extremely hard, especially when they're linked to my bank account. Because let's say if I was walking by like Sephora and a new makeup palette was coming out and I didn't have the money to get it, I knew that I had access to my savings account through my debit card, and I can just go withdraw the money and then spend it. So savings is something that's been hard for me my entire life, so I knew I had to do something a little bit drastic in order to save up that money to go on my trip. So I ended up getting an online savings account through SmartyPig, and SmartyPig is a really cool website that lets you set up goals, and these are kind of like financial goals. So let's say you want to save up $5,000 to go, you know, on your next trip. You set up this goal, and it's really cool because you can link it to your Facebook account and send it to family members so that they can donate money to this goal. And what it does is you can actually automatically set it up to withdraw money from your bank account. So let's say you know that you get paid every 2 weeks. Maybe every 2 weeks you want to schedule for an automatic withdrawal from your bank account to your SmartyPig account and to your savings goal. What I personally did was I wanted to have a little bit more control of it. So every time I got paid, I would personally go and deposit a certain amount of money into my SmartyPig savings account. That was the first thing I used to do as soon as my check used to hit my account. Some people have it where it takes a certain percentage from your bank account. Some people have it where it takes a certain amount every few days, every month. You can set it up however you want to, but for me, honestly, that was the best way that I was able to save up money to go on my trips. It was just super convenient, and it really helped me save. So, because think about it, if you don't see the money, then you have no reason to spend it. And even when there was times that I wanted to pull out money from my savings account to use it for something else, by the time the money transfers from your online savings account to your bank account, it does take a few days. So let's say I was itching to buy some shoes that were on sale, and I would go to SmartyPig and try to transfer the money back to my account. That was already going to take 2 or 3 days, and by the time those 2 or 3 days passed, like, I didn't have the urge to buy whatever item I wanted to get at the time. So SmartyPig was a huge help. I definitely recommend it. It is FDIC insured. It's safe. It's secure. I've been using it for years. If you're trying to save up money and you find it hard to save, get a SmartyPig account. I promise it will help a lot. The next question is from Days718 on Snapchat, and she wanted to ask about traveling solo, travel essentials, and if I recommend traveling during the low season. She's looking to go to Europe, Italy, and Amsterdam in November, but that's a low season and she doesn't know if she should go or not. Okay, so number one, solo travel. I definitely recommend solo travel. When I was in Europe, I traveled with 2 friends. When I went to Argentina, I went by myself, but I had my coworkers there, so it wasn't that bad. When I was in Australia, after I finished my 5-month contract working on the cruise ship, I did stay in Australia for like 4 or 5 days on my own, by myself, and that was one of the most amazing experiences. Like, that really made me fall in love with solo traveling. And I highly recommend solo traveling, because think about it. When you travel with other people, you constantly have to ask You know, you're constantly dealing with everyone's opinion. I want to do this, I don't want to do this, let's go here, let's not do this, you know. And when you're traveling on your own, the only person that you have to worry about is yourself. If you don't want to do something, you don't have to do it. If you don't want to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning to go to a museum tour, then you don't have to, because the only person you have to worry about is yourself. It really gives you me time. It really gives you time to get to know yourself. I know it sounds really weird, but I swear that traveling solo helps you get to know more about yourself. You get to know more about the things that you like, what you don't like. It forces you to come out of your comfort zone and meet new people, because obviously when you're traveling alone, more people tend to notice, so they'll ask you, are you here with, why are you here, things like that. So it does push you out of your comfort zone, and I can say that that's probably one of the best things about traveling solo. It pushes you out of your comfort zone, and it makes you do things that you never thought that you would be able to do, or even let alone you would have the balls to do. So I highly recommend travel solo. I'm actually hoping to book a solo trip somewhere. I think it's just essential for oneself, and it really makes you focus on the most important person in the trip, which is you. So if you guys have ever thought about traveling solo, I highly recommend it. For your first traveling solo trip, I definitely recommend going to a country where the language is the same and it won't be as difficult for you. Like, I probably wouldn't recommend traveling solo to like a third world country on your own, but I definitely recommend traveling to maybe like London or Australia or one of those type of countries where the English is still the same and it's not going to be a huge culture shock, but you're still out of your comfort zone. Travel essentials. Okay, so some of my travel essentials quickly are a camera for sure. Usually I'll take my DSLR with me, which is my bigger camera, but now that I have my Sony a5100, I absolutely love it. It's a smaller compact camera. It takes high quality pictures just like my DSLR, but it's much more smaller and much more convenient. So definitely a camera, because you want to capture all those moments. I would definitely recommend a mini tripod, like something like this, so that you can put your camera on and take pictures of yourself, because that's going to be happening a lot. Or if if this is like out of the question for you, then definitely take a selfie stick, because there's going to be lots of selfies during your trip. As you know, the outlets in other countries are not the same as the outlets that we use in the US, so you definitely want to have an international charger so that you can plug in whatever devices you need to plug in no matter where you are in the world. Sneakers for sure. You're going to be doing a lot of walking, so you want to make sure that you have some comfortable sneakers that are also cute, so that you can look all fly in your outfit. A backpack. Before, when I traveled, I would always take purses, but the more I travel, the more I'm noticing that it's just so convenient to have a backpack. And backpacks are like all the rage right now. There's all these companies are making like all these cute different types of backpacks. So I would recommend, if you're traveling, like leave the purse at home, or if you're stuck on a purse, then definitely get like a cute little crossbody bag. But other than that, I would recommend a backpack. And if you must take a purse because you're going out, then take like a cute little clutch or something like that. But I would say like leave those big bags at home, those over-the-shoulder bags, leave them at home, because trust me, it's not comfortable to be traveling with those type of bags. And I would definitely say pack light. I've learned my lesson. I think packing is the hardest thing for all girls, because we always tend to overpack and take all this stuff that we think we're gonna use. The truth is, when you travel, you usually just end up wearing the same thing and maybe switching your top. So I would definitely recommend pack light. If you guys want a little bit more on that, I can do a separate video. I think traveling during the off season is great because number one, you're saving money. Number two, it's less touristy, so you're gonna be able to experience more of the country and the culture there. The only thing is, you do want to do your research. You want to make sure that you're going maybe when it's not like hurricane season, so you're not even going to get to enjoy the country you're in because the weather is awful. Ask yourself, why am I going here? Am I going to this country because I want to see XYZ attraction? Well, what about if the attraction is closed when you're going because it's during the low season? So you just want to do your research on that and make sure that everything that you're interested in seeing in that country is still going to be open and available to you during the time that you're going. Definitely recommend going during the low season. Like I said, you're saving money, and then that money that you save, you can use to splurge while you're there and treat yourself to a nice meal, treat yourself to whatever you want to treat yourself to while you're there, because you have the extra money to do. Next question we have is from Joshua. Hey boo. And he says, what has been the biggest challenge you've had to face traveling abroad? Okay, the biggest challenge that I've had to face while traveling abroad was definitely, I want to say, like culture shock. And for me, I've been to a lot of places, but I think the place where I received the most culture shock was definitely Istanbul. And so I went to Istanbul during my Euro trip, and I went there because one of my coworkers from Argentina had really recommended going there. She's been all around the world, and she said that Istanbul was her absolute favorite travel destination because it's literally the bridge between Europe and Asia. And so I was very interested and fascinated by Istanbul and Turkey, and I really wanted to go there to experience this. So we ended up going to Istanbul, and we ended up staying there for, that was one of the countries that we stayed in the longest. So I'm pretty sure it was the longest. So the biggest culture shock for me was definitely in Istanbul. We actually went during Ramadan, and for those of you that don't know what Ramadan is, it's a month in the summertime where people who are Muslim fast from sunrise to sunset. So being that we were in Istanbul, being that we were in Morocco, a lot of places were either closed completely, or if they were open, they were only open in the evening. Or like, for example, when we tried to get lunch, it was very hard for us to find places that would accommodate that because most of the people in this country were fasting. And that wasn't really the culture shock for me. The culture shock was just really mostly the way that people were perceiving us, because think about it, it was, you know, me with my brown skin and my big curly hair, and I'm tall and I'm very curvy and voluptuous, and it was my friend Yvette, who's also Dominican, curly hair, voluptuous, and my friend Aisha, who's Jamaican and brown. So when we got to Istanbul, we already kind of stuck out, and people were just kept kind of doing double looks at us. You know, we just stuck out like sore thumbs. And then to add to that, we were in a country like Istanbul where there are a lot of Muslim people. Most of the women there were all covered up, and it's not like we were walking around like naked with all of these parts exposed. Like, we were very respectful of the culture there, and we were definitely, you know, wearing clothes that wasn't provocative or anything like that. But obviously we're all curvy, we all have shapes, so we can throw on a t-shirt and jeans and still, you know, look sexy, right? According to people. So when we were walking down the street, like, the way that the men would look at us, I did feel a little bit intimidated. I'm used to the catcalling and to the men looking at me when I walk in the streets of Washington Heights, but that was on a whole nother level. And I don't know if it was because we look so different. I don't know if it's because they were fasting, and you know, when you're fasting, you're not allowed to do anything, and they were just kind of like real thirsty. But it was a little bit of a shock, and it did make me and my friends feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so we didn't really do as many of the things that I would have liked to do when we were in Istanbul, because we were kind of like, we felt kind of culture shock, I think, in Istanbul. And it was because of that. It was because of the way that people there were making us feel. And, you know, I'm sure they weren't doing it on purpose. If they were, you know, whatever. But it was mostly like the way that the men were looking at us, and it really sucks because I was really looking forward to going to Istanbul. But as soon as we got there and we kind of experienced this, like, we all kind of like took a step back, and we stayed in the hotel like a lot of the times, especially in the evening. Like, we didn't really venture out and do much. So I think for me, that was kind of like the biggest challenge that I faced, going into a country where I did feel very self-conscious, to the point that I did not want to explore and do much because I was self-conscious because of the way other people were looking at me. So I definitely would love to go back to Turkey. I would love to explore other parts of Turkey that are not just Istanbul and get out of the city a little bit. So I would like to make it back to Turkey sometime in my lifetime. It's like an hour video for sure. For sure. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope that I answered most of your travel questions on here. If you guys have any more questions, leave them below and maybe I'll do a part 2.
You should be